It's one of the most anticipated nights of the entire year, something that we've waited on for a long time. Yep, we're talking about the very first college football playoff rankings, and the first play, not just the first rankings of this season, but the first playoff rankings of the 12-team playoff era. And again, history being made tonight with these first rankings. We're going to break them all down for you, show you the rankings, and give you my reaction. First takeaway right away is just the name brand bias. It is clear that this committee has that, and I'll explain why. Actually pretty happy with my projections. I did my projections yesterday on Monday. I'll do that the rest of the season. Monday I'll show you what I think the rankings are going to look like. And I thought I did a pretty good job. Top six was exactly right. A lot of other teams were right on the money, or maybe just one spot off. But there were some teams that were off by several spots. We'll talk about those. And again, some of this really just doesn't make any sense why they did what they did. But let's jump right in. 21 through 25. All right, so they ranked Army. I'll tell you exactly why they ranked Army. They're undefeated, and they thought they should be in these rankings. That's why they ranked them, because they have no resume. They really have no reason to be ranked. I actually like this, though, because I think you should be ranked. If you're undefeated at this point, I don't care who you played. I think you deserve to be ranked. So I have no problem with that. I did not project them to be ranked. In fact, the team that I had projected in the rankings that did not make it in the rankings was South Carolina, and I actually had them at 21. And really, they should be ranked. I think they screwed up here. If you look at resumes, they've got the win over Texas A&M. That is a top 25 team that they beat. And all of their losses came to top, 15 teams? They lost to LSU. They're number 15 in these rankings. They lost to Alabama. They're number 11 in these rankings. And then they lost to Ole Miss, so 16. So all their losses came to top 16 teams. They do have 3 losses, but they're a very similar resume to Louisville. In fact, I would argue maybe it's a little bit of a better, I guess not, or a better resume, but very, very similar. So to see Louisville ranked where they are and South Carolina not ranked really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But yeah, that's the team I got wrong in terms of the 25 teams. Missouri at number 25, very close to where I had them. I had Louisville ahead of Clemson, so I'm not surprised by that at all. Those teams are a little bit lower than I expected. It's pretty clear that this committee does not think the ACC is very good. They just don't, unless you're Miami, because they gave Miami some credit. But SMU was underranked, and I thought, not by much. I had Louisville at 20. I had Clemson at 22. So, I mean, they were about where I expected them to be. I really have, nothing big to take away there. You look at Washington State at number 21. That's about where I expected them to be. No real surprise there. I had Washington State at 18, so I did have them a little bit higher. But no, I had them at 19. So I had Washington State at 19. Again, not much difference there, just a couple of spots. Nothing really big to take away here, except for the fact that South Carolina did not get in, and Army did get in, like I said, just because that's why they're at 25, because Missouri doesn't have a very good resume. They could have easily put them at 24, but they put them at 25 just because they wanted them to be in these rankings. They wanted to recognize them for being undefeated. That's pretty much the only reason. All right, 16 through 20. So Colorado. All right, what's really interesting to me is Kansas State and Colorado being here, being higher than I expected them to be. I was projecting Kansas State at 23 and Colorado at 24. So they're both higher than I anticipated, which makes you think maybe the committee really values the Big 12. Iowa State is also a little bit higher than I thought they would be, just by one spot. But still, they seem to value the Big 12. But look at where they put BYU, and we'll talk about that in just a second. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If they think the Big 12 is this good, BYU should be ranked higher. But anyways, yeah. Nothing really. I mean, no one's really off by a lot here. Nothing to complain about, really. You look at Colorado and their resume, they really don't have one. I'm surprised they're ranked this high. I mean, if you compare Colorado and Missouri's resumes, I think Missouri has a better resume, and they lost to better teams. So, yeah, I'm not really sure what the deal is here with Kansas State and Colorado, but the committee did like them. And again, we're not talking about a huge difference here. Iowa State and Pittsburgh were flip-flopped. I had them at 18. I had Pittsburgh at 17 and Iowa State at 18. Really not much difference there. Resumes very similar. Ole Miss at 16, that's right where they had them. And this cluster of SEC teams is right where I expected them to be. I had Ole Miss at 16. I had LSU at 15. I had Texas A&M at 14. Those teams, again, right where I expected them to be. Now, I had Alabama just ahead of Texas A&M. The committee did not... Look, Nick Saban's gone, but Alabama's still getting the benefit of the doubt. I guess it's probably because of the Georgia win. But when you really look at where they rank these teams, and even hearing from the whatever his name is, the head guy there in the playoff committee, they talked about, well, this team's ranked here ahead of this team because of this. And then they talk about another team. Well, this team's ranked here ahead of this team because of this. Like, they use different reasons. So it's clear that they're going to use whatever they want to rank the teams, wherever they want to rank them. And again, like I said, the brand name bias is absolutely real. And it's clear with these rankings. So, yeah, with Alabama, they do have the Georgia win. They do have the Missouri win. They do have a solid resume. But, Boise State, they've got a win over Washington State. That's a ranked team. Their only loss came to Oregon. And they only have one loss. Alabama has two losses. So, yeah, I'm not really going to complain about that too much. But it was interesting to see Alabama up there. And I'm going to assume it's the Georgia win. That's what they're going to put as the reasoning there. But the team that I have a problem with is SMU. I had SMU projected at number 10. SMU, they only lost to an undefeated BYU team. And they've got to win over a ranked Pitt and a ranked Louisville, a Duke team that's not bad, and a TCU team that's not horrible. SMU is only where they are because of the brand bias. All right, let's compare SMU and Notre Dame. Well, just for a second, let's compare SMU and Notre Dame because you're going to see, Notre Dame is at number 10. They are ahead of SMU by a few spots. If you compare the resumes, let's just look at the wins. SMU has a win over a ranked Pittsburgh team. Notre Dame has a win over a ranked Texas A&M team. Yeah, Texas A&M is a little bit higher than Pitt. But Pitt's a one-loss team. Texas A&M is a two-loss team. Notre Dame has a win over Navy. They're not ranked, but they're a solid team. Both teams have wins over Louisville. And then again, you look at SMU with wins over Duke and TCU. Notre Dame with a win over Georgia Tech. So those are very similar resumes in terms of the wins. But SMU lost to an undefeated BYU. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. There is absolutely no reason for Notre Dame to be ranked ahead of SMU. I have a major problem there. Again, that makes no sense at all. And they talked about Ohio State being at 2 because they lost to Oregon. Well, that doesn't apply here, obviously, because SMU lost to a top 10 undefeated BYU team. Notre Dame lost to a MAC team. SMU should be ahead of Notre Dame. And Notre Dame is about where I expected them to be. They're just one spot higher. The problem here, I'm not complaining about Notre Dame. I'm complaining about SMU. SMU should be higher. There's no reason for them to be at 13. Let's go to the top 10 now. Notre Dame at number 10, just talked about them. Again, about where I expected them to be. I just thought that SMU should be higher. So Indiana and BYU at 8 and 9, lower than I thought. I told you guys I thought BYU should be in the top 4, but I didn't think that they would be. I thought that they would have them at 7. No, they actually dropped them all the way to 9. BYU has a win over number 13 in the committee's rankings, number 13 SMU, and they have a win over their number 19 team, Kansas State. Also a Baylor win that's not bad. They have 0 losses. It doesn't make any sense to me. You look at Tennessee's resume, they have a win over Alabama, and that's it. And they have a loss. BYU has no losses. So BYU should 100% be ahead of Tennessee. I think you can make an argument that they should be ahead of Texas and Penn State because those teams have no wins. But the committee's saying, well, look at who they lost to. Penn State lost. They lost to Ohio State. Texas lost to Georgia. So in those cases, well, it's about who you lost to. But then in other cases, it's about who you beat. Like with Alabama, it's because they beat Georgia. So they use different things. And you guys know this. You guys are smart. You've been commenting on my videos. It's clear every year that they do this. Indiana, I don't know, where do you put Indiana? They have no resume, but they passed the eye test. I think they're a really good team. it just, if you're going by eye test, I think you can rank them even higher. But if you're going by resume, they shouldn't be that high. So, yeah, it's nice to see these first rankings. Even though there's no consistency with the rankings, we at least know their initial thoughts about these teams. And I think that'll help us project moving forward. And you have to keep in the back of your mind that brand name bias, because it is absolutely real, and it's clear this year. I think we can see that without a doubt. Texas at 6, and again, the top 5 is exactly like I projected. I thought that Ohio State would be ahead of Georgia because, the win over Penn State's a really good win. The resumes are similar. Georgia has a little bit better resume in terms of wins, but Ohio State lost to the number 1 team in the country. Georgia lost to they're a number 11 team with Alabama. So I think they got that right. Miami, they don't pass the eye test, honestly. They keep squeaking by in these games. And their resume, they don't really have a whole lot on the resume either. So, if you're going with eye test, I think Indiana should be ahead of Miami. I mean, right? Because Indiana has been way more impressive. They have not had to come down to the wire in these games. But if you're going by resume, I mean, Miami doesn't have much. They have the win over Louisville. They don't have, you compare their resume with Indiana, it's a little better, but it's not a lot better. And again, if you're going eye test, Indiana should be ahead of Miami. So there's so many inconsistencies with the way they rank these teams. And then Penn State at 5. So again, top 6 was exactly like I expected. Most of this was how I expected. I think BYU definitely underrated. SMU definitely underrated. And how convenient that those teams played each other, because underrating one can help you justify underranking the other. I thought South Carolina should be ranked. I think they missed the mark there. But overall, pretty much what I expected. Would love to get your thoughts, your takeaways, your reaction on these first rankings. Let me know about it down in the comments below.